Welcome to my secret channel Emerald, where I ramble about whatever I feel like in the laziest, I said laziest, format possible. Glad to have you here. Classroom of the Elite. Yokoso, Jitsu, Ryoku, Shijo, Shugi no Kyoshitsu. Yeah, that. I just call it Classroom of the Elite. Call me a Western man, because that's what I am. So, unfortunately, I am only going to be talking about Season 1 in this video. As of recording this, Season 2 has not started yet, and I have not read the light novel, but I really want to read the light novel really badly. Once I catch up to Index, which to be fair is probably going to take a long time, I think I want to start reading Classroom of the Elite after that, because I've been really interested in this series for a hot minute. So just to kind of take you back. So I think Classroom of the Elite aired in like 2017. Let me make sure that's right. Yes, 2017. So it's been like 5 years since that aired. And it was a show that I watched it as it was airing, and I really enjoyed it. It's like I feel like I had basically no expectations for it. I can't even remember why I checked it out in the first place. I was probably just checking out a ton of stuff, because in 2017, like, I was on top of seasonal anime, dude. I was watching so much. I can't watch seasonal anime anymore. That's the thing. Like, back then I used to be able to do it. Now I can't stand like waiting an entire week to watch an episode of something. I don't even think I've done it, besides maybe Attack on Titan. I don't think I've watched a seasonal anime as it was airing in like a year or something crazy like that. But back then, when I watched seasonal anime a lot more, for, I guess, a few reasons, Classroom of the Elite really stuck out to me, and it's a show that just I never really forgot about, and I was always really for the last 5 years, I've been hoping that they would release another season, and I kind of didn't think that they would, but when they announced a second season of it, and that it's, found out it's going to be airing really soon, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and rewatch Classroom of the Elite. And I found that I liked it even more than I did when I watched it like 5 years ago. And I felt like I had so much I wanted to say about it. So here I am recording this video. Now, I'm aware that the anime supposedly did not have like a great adaptation of, what was in the light novel. So, I mean, any like light novel readers watching this are probably gonna, think I'm a little stupid for liking it. But when you don't read the source material of an anime, you don't have any expectations of what to see. You don't know what content is being skipped or added. So I'm really just talking about what I saw in the anime from someone that doesn't know the source material. Now, I have actually tried reading the manga, but the manga had such a bad translation, I just couldn't, I don't know, like, it's really hard for me to get immersed in something where the translation is, like, really off. I think it was just a fan translation. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, like, the official thing or anything, but I cannot get immersed in a story if the translation is just, like, really out of whack. And so I didn't get too far into that. Now, to my knowledge, one of the biggest problems with both of those adaptations is how different the main character, who I quite like, Ayana Koji, I have a hard time saying his name, Ayana Koji, is that, so in the anime, he's like really cold and kind of like emotionless, and in the manga, I was kind of tripped out reading it, because it's like, he's a lot more expressive and kind of like goofy in the manga. It's like, is this the same character from the anime? Apparently that's the big difference one of the biggest differences between the anime, the manga, and the original light novel is that it exaggerates the two different aspects of him. The anime is supposedly, from what I've heard, way more, a lot colder and more emotionless than the light novel. But in the manga, he's like kind of goofier and oddly more expressive, and the light novel is kind of a balance between the two. So right off the bat, I guess I can kind of see why that would be an issue. But yeah, anyways, what was there in the anime I really enjoyed, and I do plan to talk about season 2 if I have enough to say about season 2 once that finishes airing. And like I said, I really do want to read the light novel, like really badly. But I got like, dude, how many volumes of Index am I behind on? I don't know. I'm not gonna count them. But it'll be a while till I get to that. But that is on the to-do list once I get there. But anyways, you know what? Let's just get right into it. And by the way, there will be spoilers. Only season 1. I don't know anything that happens after that. But I will say I'm not gonna explain the premise in like super detail so you understand everything. If you haven't seen it, I would really recommend just like checking it out. It's only like 12 episodes out right now, so yeah. Just a general sort of overview of what I thought of Classroom of the Elite season 1. I loved the fun premise. I love kind of absurd premises like that. It does slightly give me like Danganronpa vibes. It's not a killing game, but you know, you have all of these students that are stuck in a school and they kind of have to compete. It's classes competing against each other instead of like students competing individually, and it feels like it just had kind of a similar sort of feeling premise to that. The characters are stuck in this environment where they can't fully trust everyone around them. Maybe even to an extent they can't trust their own classmates, even though they need to. And then on top of that, there's just all of these really very like specific rules of things that you can and can't do. And there's a ton of loopholes and a ton of different ways that you can interpret the rules that have been presented to the students. And that's kind of why I find that so fun. To me, it's so interesting. And I can see so many opportunities for what they can do in this series, and I love that. I love when I watch a series and I feel like there's so much that they can do with what they've set up. You know, it's a lot better to me than a premise where it's like a one-trick pony sort of thing, right? Where I'm just wondering how on earth can you take a story this far with this, you know, bland of a premise. One thing I want to point out about the show is the presentation, because one thing that they do that kind of ties in with, you know, the narrative and kind of what is happening in each episode, and I guess the theming and messaging to an extent, but it's the quotes that they always put at the beginning of the episode. They write it in like different languages as well. It's also like the title of the episode, and they're all these quotes from like different books, or you know, a lot of like philosophical books, and there's a lot of interesting quotes in there. To kind of read out a few of them that I liked it was, oh man, I don't remember what episode was this. I think it was episode 2. It's it takes a great talent and skill to conceal one's talent and skill. We should not be upset that others hide the truth from us when we hide it so often from ourselves. Man is an animal that makes bargains. No other animal does this. No dog exchanges bones with another. And the last one I'll read for now is just, nothing is as dangerous as an ignorant friend. A wise enemy is to be preferred. And I don't know, I little details like that kind of do a lot in terms of in regards to the presentation. It kind of, you know, it adds a little bit of spice to the show as a whole that it kind of sticks within my brain for a while. But to move on to my favorite part about the show, it's really just the character writing, because something this show constantly did, and as I was rewatching it, I noticed towards the end that this show is putting a lot of attention on every single character. It feels like it's like there's so many characters, but they all feel like they fill this very specific role, and you get a good kind of grasp of their mentality, of their personality, of what their motives are, and all this different stuff that really like brought to life this cast in this show that was only 12 episodes. I don't really know how they did it. The characters in this show, just from season 1 alone, they don't feel stagnant in the slightest. Characters progress surprisingly a lot, and there's a lot of like really interesting mystery behind a lot of the characters that just keeps me wanting to watch the show. It's like I just felt that in such a short amount of time they were able to get me invested in a lot of different characters to better understand their psychology or their motives or what is their true self? Because a lot of the characters feel as if they're just hiding their true selves. And I mean, no character is really more obvious in that regard than like Kushida, right? Who just like flipped a switch and like episode, I think it was the end of episode 3. I remember watching that. I was like, whoa, this show is really good at these sort of cliffhangers where they end the episode on some sort of crazy reveal I wasn't expecting. It was pretty impressive to me. So a lot of this video is probably just going to be me talking about a lot of like individual characters and what I liked or found interesting about them. But I want to point out what I thought was like the main purpose of the show. When I was watching, I was like, what is the show trying to get across to me? And so I wrote down, because I usually don't write notes down for an anime, but I did for this because I about 3 episodes in, I thought I might want to make a video on it because I already had a lot to say about it in just 3 episodes. So I kind of thought the main purpose of the show was to just showcase how working to overcome your weaknesses can really benefit you in life. And it's so well put in this show, where every student was put in the corresponding class based off of their overall like capabilities. And that takes into account everything. That takes into account how well you do academically, how good you are at sports, how good you are at handling other people, and how goal driven are you? Are you like easily? It's everything. Everything that can define you as a capable or incapable person is what gets you assigned to a specific class. So when the main character is assigned to class D, which is the worst class, supposedly, all of the class's weaknesses are fully out on display, and you can really tell why most of them, not all of them, but most of them were put in that class for very specific reasoning. So let's look at Pseudo. He's basically like the muscle head. He's the muscle head with like a really short temper in the class, and he doesn't care about anything other than I think playing basketball. He's great at athletics, but he sucks academically, and he can't get along with people very well, and he has a really bad temper. And so a lot of the earlier episodes are actually just trying to get Pseudo to comply with the rest of them and sit down and study so that they can do better on this test, so that they can get points for their class. And there's every single character like that has something. So let's look at Horikita, and I think I'm going to talk a lot about Horikita soon, because I think Horikita is probably the best written character in the show. So up to this point, I personally found her to be the most impressive. But Horikita, it's very obvious what her problem is, because she's great academically and she's great at sports. She's basically talented at everything, but she is horrible at working with others, and she likes to do everything by herself. And in an environment like this, you can't do it. You can't do that. You have to be a team player in this, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is a very Japanese concept. It's kind of a country that values a team effort a lot more than America, where in America there's a lot more of a focus put on individuality, right? So now I'm thinking about it's actually a very Japanese show in that regard. But Horikita, she wants to do everything by herself. She sucks at communicating with people, and she sucks at forming allies and friendships with anyone, to the point where she actively thinks she doesn't need to do that, or that other people are going to hinder her. And there's actually a great quote. Hopefully I wrote this down in my notes. 1 second. Well, never mind. I can't find it. I didn't take a screenshot of it, apparently. But Horikita, when Pseudo is at peak hindrance, Horikita's initial reaction is that, oh, we should just let Pseudo get expelled because he's going to hold the rest of us back. So we should just get rid of the problem kids so that the better people will be able to go on moving forward. And that's obviously not the greatest mentality. And it's definitely not what the school is trying to facilitate within them. I don't know if I use that word correctly, but I used it anyways. Anyway, obviously that's not what you can tell. That's not, what the school wants from. They don't want you to just abandon each other. But yeah, anyways, Horikita's initial reaction is that, oh, we should just let Pseudo fail and get expelled so we don't have to worry about him anymore. But then she comes around and realizes that maybe there's some value in trying to keep Pseudo around and try to, keep him afloat and make sure he doesn't expel. Maybe he'll really prove to be beneficial to us later on. We can't just abandon him this early on without giving him any sort of chance whatsoever. That is some character development, like right off the bat. I was surprised at how sort of quick she had that realization. And the thing is, it's a very human and a very understanding sort of response. Is like, if there's one person that's a problem, you just get rid of them, right? It's like, it's kind of like the mental gymnastics meme. I don't know if anyone has seen that, but that's just kind of like what it reminds me of. But I personally just kind of really related with Horikita and her desire to just kick Pseudo out. If I was in that situation, I probably would have had the same exact thought. And that's something I think the show kind of nails. It's very human, and there's not an excess of these super overly righteous characters that are just trying to do the right thing every single time. They have no, moral hesitation whatsoever. They're just perfectly righteous. I'm tired of characters like that. I see them enough. I see them enough in these stupid power fantasy isekais, all right? I've seen them enough. I'm tired of characters like that. I want characters like this in Classroom of the Elite that have issues that I can actually kind of relate with to an extent. But yeah, back to Horikita. It's impressive how fast she came to that realization that, oh, this is not gonna work. I can't just be a complete lone wolf in this class if I want to reach Class A, because that is her goal. Her goal is pretty clearly stated later on, that she wants to reach Class A so that her brother will acknowledge her. So just right off the bat, I'm invested in Horikita. I love what they've already set up with her. She's already a really interesting character. She's a really funny character. Horikita and Ayano Koji, they have an outstanding sort of chemistry together. They have a really fun dynamic that I really like. I'm not gonna explain any of the jokes because then I'm just gonna ruin it. But I will say that those two probably consistently had my favorite character interactions throughout the whole season. But yeah, kind of going back to the main purpose of the show, I just find it really inspiring, because it feels like the whole message of the show is kind of to help one another overcome their weaknesses, and overcome your own weaknesses as well. Not just helping others to do so, but also challenging yourself to overcome your weaknesses, rather than abandoning others or giving up the very second that they become a hindrance. And I just find that very inspiring, and something that I can, take with me out into reality in some way, which is something I really like in an anime. If an anime can kind of make me reflect on something that I might be doing wrong in real life, then I consider that a big plus. And just to kind of bring it up again, I really love just how many of the characters have their own very sort of specific, but also reasonable and sort of relatable goals. So Pseudo wants to play basketball, right? That's what's driving him to get through this school, because, in this school, if you graduate from this school, it's pretty much a 100% guarantee employment. You will be employed if you graduate from here, because graduating from here is such an insane accomplishment. It's extremely challenging, and I assume very few people are actually able to do it, or at least a large portion of them are not able to do it. But Pseudo wants to play basketball. Ichinose from Class B, she just values the bonds with her classmates, and she just wants to continue supporting them. Wasn't Ichinose just such a sweetheart? What a cheerful character. What a white pilling character. Yeah, and then I already mentioned Horikita wants acknowledgement from her brother, and then we have someone like Kushida, who she wants to become friends with like every single person in the school. I'm not exactly sure what that's about. And while not every character's motive is complete, is like blatantly stated, for a lot of them we can kind of just tell they're in this for like a sense of like power in it, to gain a sense of like power and influence. Like I think his name is Ryuen from Class C. He's like the leader of Class C, as well as probably like so there's like 2 leaders in Class A, and there's like apparently they're like 2 competing factions, which is so cool to me that this show has things like factions, right? Even within classes there's still a lot of rivalry. And so you have, apparently it's kind of been like foreshadowed that these 2 in Class A are kind of competing for like the leadership spot. I think maybe I misinterpreted something or didn't understand something, but they're using their time at this prestigious government-funded school with this insane reputation, and they're using their time here to gain influence. I assume not just within the school, but also to carry over like in the real world outside of the school. That would be just my personal guess, but I can't imagine why else they would, care so much. Another thing I want to point out is just like the display of like human nature and kind of how like socially aware the show is. So, at the beginning of the show, the students are given access to like plenty of money and resources to just do whatever. They can't leave the campus or anything like that, but they are just given all of this money and all of these resources, all these places to shop and just do literally whatever they want. They can spend this money however they want, and they're not told, the catch until later. And so, human nature fully on display when Class D, all those idiots, they splurge in the very first month, not realizing that there would be a catch or anything, and they just spend all their money. They got way too comfortable and spent all their money for like on like this luxurious lifestyle. And it's like how, when someone wins the lottery and then they end up spending all of their money because they think that they can never run out, and then they end up like going in debt, or they end up losing everything, right? It kind of reminded me of that. It's because that's exactly what it was. It was a very accurate portrayal of how humans would actually probably respond in that situation. And when I said about social awareness, so like there's a lot of commentary about like social standing in this show, and it's kind of like amplified by the fact that all of the higher ranked classes, they just completely look down on the lower ranked classes. It's such a like a social sort of show, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. Like if you're in Class D, you might as well put a piece of paper on your back that says "kick me," because you're probably going to get looked down on. Like very early on, Pseudo is confronted by I think they're seniors or whatever. They're like year 2 students or whatever, and they're just mocking Pseudo to high heaven, right? They're just like looking down on him like he's a pest, I mean, all the students are in this situation where they are straight up ranked by their capabilities. So naturally, if you see someone in a higher class or a lower class than you, it's kind of going to change how you communicate with them, right? It's very hierarchical. That's hard to say. It's a very heavy emphasis on hierarchy, and I like it a lot. I think it adds a lot to the interactions. So, all of this just adds up to be like a really interesting setup. It really, I can't like express like how quickly it hooked me. It's just, to me, it's far from like being a boring show, because there's just so much to consider about it. And you know what, it's just fun to see like high schoolers like learning about self-sufficiency. I don't know, it all leads down this really interesting path that it's not only can you take something away from it just on a personal level, but it's just fun to watch. It's fun to see how everything is going to unfold and what direction the show is going to go down. And so I'm really excited for season 2 at this point. But now I think I'm gonna kind of go down this list, 'cause, you know, I got like a ton of notes left, so I kind of want to just talk about different characters and stuff. So I want to point out Sakura. All right, hear me out. I never care about like the really reserved, shy girl with glasses. That is like the one archetype I'm almost never into, and Sakura somehow managed to break through that bias I had against that archetype, because Sakura is not only like one of the like a really interesting character to me, but she's also just straight up one of my favorites. Like she's just, I just love her, bro. I just like her a lot, dude. She might be best girl. It's hard for me to say right now because Horikita, I love Horikita as a character. And I think she's easily the most interesting character to me right now. But Sakura's just so charming and endearing that I don't know who like my favorite is. You know, I feel like when trying to determine my favorite, it's kind of like, well, do I pick the favorite as in character I was most intrigued by, or the character that I just enjoyed their screen time the most? You know, usually I go with the character I just enjoyed their presence and their screen time the most. But it's whatever. Sakura, anyways, love her character. So the whole point of her character is that, and the reason she was probably put in class, is that she struggles with interacting with people and she's too nervous to even like make eye contact. So as a result of her difficulties with social interaction, she's resorting to creating an online personality where I imagine she's acting more like the type of person that she wishes she was in reality. And so on the internet, she kind of acts like this cute sort of idol who's like upbeat and kind of confident, and she takes like provocative photos of herself, and that attracts the attention from a lot of people, and I imagine she feels like a sense of validation from that attention. I could make a joke about OnlyFans girls, and I'd love to make that joke, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna move on. Anyways, so though it was like a bit exaggerated, there was like this guy that was like attempting to assault her, and I really liked how they actually handled the consequences of like her portraying herself in that way and gathering a lot of attention on the internet, causing people to kind of unhealthily obsess over her. Because I'm sorry, but who knew that it would be not a smart idea to post provocative images of yourself on the internet for attention and validation, right? So I really like how they handled portraying the consequences, like I said, even though it was exaggerated. And, you know, at the end of the short little story, she recognizes that it was probably unhealthy to maintain this sort of false persona just to garner that validation, unless I misinterpreted this entire thing, which is possible because they weren't as I don't know, it wasn't like super blatantly stated. That's just kind of how I interpreted the end of that episode. In its own right, it was just a charming little personal story for her, and dude, she's just so endearing. She's so cute. I'm pulling for her, you know? I'm just like pulling for her. I don't know. She's just a character that I wouldn't say she's like one of the most impressive characters. I just thought she had like a kind of endearing storyline, and she's a very fun, cute, and charming character that I enjoy her every time she's on screen. Every scene of hers I really like. Anyways, moving on. So as I'm scrolling through my notes, I want to point out another one of those quotes. I like this quote a lot. Man is condemned to be free. That is such a cool, thought-provoking quote. I like that a lot. I'll let you interpret that for yourself. Anyways, let us move on to I don't know what the actual name of this arc is. It's not like Index where I know the name of every arc ever. I just called it the Island Survival arc because I don't know what to call it. This is quite the high IQ like Code Geass arc, I guess. I don't know. It had such a cool twist to it at the end. I was like, man, this just feels like a Lelouch Keikaku. Feels like a light Yagami, which, you know, I have more to say about Ayano Koji later. But just kind of talking about some different parts of the arc. Kind of like a random, kind of just some random little bits from the arc. But I said that Ike, he's actually a really cool character in this arc because, you know, you look at him and you think that he's like, you know, just some little goofball that's not going to contribute anything. But then he actually proved to be really helpful throughout this, and it kind of makes you take a step back and realize that while everyone in Class D has, like, you know, some sort of major weakness and that caused them to be in Class D, all of them still have some sort of strength that they can use to help out the rest of the class. And that's where EK kind of shines here, because he like went on, he used to go camping all the time when he was younger, and so he was very knowledgeable about you know, everything, all the resources and everything they had to do on this island to, you know, get water, make a fire, and all this different stuff. And so it kind of puts into perspective that, you know, if we had abandoned EK and given up on him and just, you know, let him get expelled from failing or something, then we wouldn't have his help right now and we'd be screwed. So that kind of puts things into perspective, and I really like that they, you know, would put attention on a little random kind of goofball character like that. And it's not really just Ike, it's like Class D actually kind of starts to come together, and they kind of gain like a newfound respect for some of like the less popular classmates, like, you know, like I already said with Ike, and by the end of it, Horikita, even though Horikita kind of messed up and Ayano Koji just kind of gave her credit. But you kind of see everyone come together throughout parts of the arc, and it's really cool to see that. I think that they're kind of realistically portraying like how bonds can grow or deteriorate when placed in a tough sort of like primitive environment like this. So there was this one scene where Ike and Kuruizawa, well, they were kind of bickering with each other kind of towards the beginning, and later on when Ike's like helping out, Kuruizawa recognizes this, they kind of come to understand each other a little bit better, and they apologize to each other. And so I just kind of like that sort of development there, where, you know, being in a tough environment like that, you can get really overwhelmed and take it out on other people, have a hard time understanding where other people are coming from, but then you kind of come together like this and you try to understand where each other is coming from, and just kind of taking that sort of step forward to kind of like improve your relationships with those around you that you might be stuck with, but you kind of have to make the most of it. And so I thought that was kind of, you know, admirable and really well done. I also want to point out Hirata. So at the beginning of the show, Hirata, he just seems like such a normie. You know, he just seems like such a, you know, normie dude in the class. Literally everyone likes him because he's, you know, he's outgoing and he gets along with everyone. He tries to help everyone fit in. He's good at what he does. He's, you know, he's smart, he's athletic, all this stuff. But they kind of cast him aside from Ayano Koji's perspective. I think it's because it's from Ayano Koji's perspective. He kind of doesn't view Hirata differently than any other random character in the class. So that sort of perspective that everyone else has of Hirata is not really present throughout the majority of the show up to this arc, because we're looking from Ayano Koji's perspective, who is a little bit more like Horikita in the sense that he's a little bit more of like a lone wolf, not entirely by choice, but that's just kind of how it naturally, with his personality, that's just kind of how he naturally ends up. But Hirata, he had more depth than I was expecting, as revealed in this arc. You can tell he actually like very much so values harmony within the class, and he's willing to hide the truth or even damage his own reputation to maintain that harmony. And he's also like a pretty good judge of character. I feel like stereotypically this kind of guy would hate Ayano Koji, but he actually seems to quite respect Ayano Koji. And he, like I said, he's like a good judge of character, which is kind of not something I would have expected from a character like him, you know, but he's actually kind of admirable in a lot of ways. And I wasn't really expecting him to have that sort of depth. Kind of moving back to Horikita, I really want to highlight this moment of self-reflection that she has, and I'm going to put the screenshots on screen if hopefully I can remember when editing. But Horikita basically throughout the arc she was sick throughout the arc, and she was struggling because she sincerely just does not do well in an environment like this. She doesn't like being in a primitive environment, and she very blatantly does not really like to be around people a lot, at least not like in a crowd or a large group of people. Kind of like me. I don't like being around a ton of people, to be fair. So, man, Horiki is actually a really relatable character, just on a personal level. Obviously, she's, more exaggerated, of course, because it's, a work of fiction. But I think you can kind of understand where I'm coming from with that. But she had really been struggling like really badly throughout this entire arc. So she was sick. She felt like she couldn't contribute much. She wasn't able to form allyships like she had wanted to. And so there's this really good quote here. She said, "I, who looked down my nose at the others and called them worthless. When it comes down to it, not only am I useless, I'm resolving things with violence," because she was fighting like this girl from Class C. And I really love that moment of self-reflection where she realizes that she's no better than the people that she thought so little of at the beginning of this show. It's really, really cool. Cool to see how put in that environment she finally comes to that understanding that she really is no better than the people she's looking down on. That it's quite a moment of self-critique, and I just really appreciate that about her character in this moment. And then I'll provide the other screenshots as well. But then she says, "It's all to gain my brother's acknowledgement. I'm responsible for all of it. If I had had allies, we could have taken shifts to protect the card. But since I don't have any friends like that, I brought this all on myself. I swear I'll make up for this failure." And then she said she would do it by herself. I didn't get the screenshot for it, but she said she would do it by herself. You idiot! She said he'd do it by herself if she had to. And then Ayana Koji says to her, "If you can't fight by yourself, fight with another." Yeah, Ayana Koji's a king. I won't hear any opposing opinions. Ayana Koji is total Chad. So yeah, I don't know where Horikita's character is gonna go, like in the future, but I love what they've set up with her, and I love how much she has already developed. I love how critical she is already of herself, and she's become very aware of what her problems are. And she's just such a fun, driven character that makes for, a really exciting experience. That makes me very excited to see where she will go. And she's a very huge part of why I am so invested in it. There's more than just Horikita, obviously. I've talked about, a lot of other characters that I found to be really interesting. But so far, just from season 1, she has been the standout to me. I do want to go ahead and talk about Ayana Koji. So I feel like this sort of character archetype is like pretty hit or miss for people. For me, it's a hit because, like I said earlier, I'm really tired of these super overly self-righteous sort of protagonists where it's just they're gonna do what is morally right every single time, zero hesitation whatsoever, because they represent all that is good and all that you should aspire to be, and they're just absolutely perfect. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of characters like that. I'm not gonna say I don't like any of them, but I don't like most of them. Ayana Koji is a very different character, and there's such a huge mystery to me behind what his character actually is, because I wrote down at the beginning of my rewatch, when I didn't really remember much about the show, I wrote down that to me it seemed like he was trying to create a better like high school life experience that he had at whatever place he was before, because there was a lot of flashbacks where he looked really unhappy in some sort of institute. And so I thought he was trying to like use his time in high school to make up for that. I thought he was kind of trying to form genuine bonds with people. and have a like good, fulfilling high school life with plenty of friends around him. But then it's revealed at the very end of the season that he only cares about winning. He never saw Horikita as an ally. He never saw Kushida as an ally. No one he doesn't. It seemed as if he didn't particularly care about anyone around him. All he cares about is winning. And then there's this big question to me is like, okay, well, what does he mean by winning? Because he didn't show any interest in the 100% guarantee of employment. He didn't show much interest in really like self-improvement either. He hasn't shown any sort of interest in like reaching Class A. So what does he mean by winning? What is he trying to accomplish? Like, what does he want to win? Who's he trying to beat? And I had no memory of him saying that the first time I watched the show back in 2017. So I was like actually kind of caught off guard. And so I kind of got to thinking like, okay, is everything he was doing up to this point just like a ruse? Was the advice that he gave to Horikita just to manipulate her so that they could win? Like what was he trying to do? Like, is he being genuine at all? Is he being completely fake, all for supposedly winning something? I don't know. And so there's this huge mystery behind Ayana Koji's character that I really like. And you know, it kind of felt like he wasn't actually the main character. When that scene happened, I was like, he doesn't really feel like the main character. Horikita kind of feels more like the main character. And you know, it's kind of interesting to see that we have Ayana Koji as who we see, the lens that we see the story from. But we don't really understand all that much about him. All we see are these really vague flashbacks that we can't really make too much out of. So I'm thinking like, you know, most shows, the protagonist is the character you understand the most about. Usually you understand them and you don't understand everyone else. Like you don't understand the villains or whatever. But it feels reversed here because Ayana Koji feels kind of like the most mysterious character of all, yet he's supposedly the character whose lens we're experiencing the narrative from, which is really interesting. So I actually kind of felt like, in a way, Horikita up to this point kind of feels like the true protagonist because she's developed a lot much more like a protagonist would. So Ayana Koji is a very interesting character to me. I really like this sort of emotionless, not moody. The thing is, he's not a moody character. He just appears moody because he's so detached looking and emotionless throughout the show. And you know, one type of character I almost always have a problem with is the character that is perfect at everything. I really don't like these characters that are legitimately amazing at everything. I'll give you an amazing example. I don't even know how many people have seen this anime, but let me remember the name of it because the name of it's stupid. Okay, it's called The World's Finest Assassin Gets Reincarnated in Another World as an Aristocrat. I watched it because some people I knew were talking about it. That is a primary example of a main character I can't stand. The show wasn't terrible. It was fine. It had some fun moments, but like, that's a character I can't stand because he's perfect at literally everything. Like, he looks cool, he's absurdly talented, he's amazing at literally everything he does, no matter what. Every girl around him wants to bang him. It's just, I hate it, dude. It's like the author wanted to write a character that everyone is just jealous of. It's like they were wanting to write a protagonist that the reader would just be completely jealous of. I cannot fathom why you would want to write a main character like that. You can't project on a character that's amazing at everything. So that can't be the reason why. It's not really like, I don't know, because he's not like a blank slate character. He's just literally perfect at everything. It's like, okay, Ayana Koji is a good twist on this because Ayana Koji is great at basically like he's absurdly smart. I don't know how like athletic he is, but he's absurdly smart and can get the upper hand in like any situation ever. But it's he himself holds back to the point of making himself appear absurdly average or even like stupid. Like if you look at his test scores, when he got into the school, his test scores were like 50 on literally everything, 50% on every single test. Like, bro, you look stupid doing that, even though he obviously probably knows the answer to everything. So it's like he's a character that's like absurdly talented and intelligent, and it doesn't matter because he's not using that, right? He's holding himself back to the point where it feels kind of unsatisfying. You want him to flex, but he's not gonna flex. And I really like that because it's kind of subversive, you know? But yeah, that is my take on Ayana Koji. I really like him. I find him to be very interesting, very intriguing. I want to know more about him. I think it's a very unique sort of setup for a protagonist in a series like this, and I am very excited to see where he goes. And you know what he says at the very end? He says, "In this world, winning is everything, as long as I win in the end." Where have I heard that before? Sounds a little familiar. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up pretty soon. I don't want this video to be too long. You know, it's only a 12 episode anime at the moment, so yeah. Other things I have to say, you know what? I'm listening to the soundtrack, and this soundtrack slaps. I didn't really get to appreciate it too much because I actually was just watching most of it on my phone. But there's some bangers. There's some really, really good music in this. Very recognizable. It fits the I think it fits the show very well. And you know what? It just sounds good. I can feel my IQ like rising as I'm listening to it. So I was at like single digits. I think I'm like pretty close to double digits right now listening to it. So yeah. Okay. I guess just another sort of general overview as to my thoughts about the show. Like I said, I love the premise. I love the environment. I like a lot of the messaging and just what the show is trying to push. To me, like I said earlier, I thought it was actually kind of inspiring. I love a lot of the characters and the direction that they're going, and I like how much of a focus there is on the classes at large. It's not just about like a few individuals. There's actually quite a large focus on tons of different characters, all in like Class D, all the other classes, the teachers as well. It's all very interesting. I'm liking how a lot of the characters have developed already. I'm liking a lot of the sort of depth that is already there for characters that don't even seem very important. I like a lot of the mysteries that are being built up right now. And I'm really excited to see where the story goes. I hear it gets like pretty crazy later on. I have no idea of anything that happens in this series. So please don't spoil anything that happens in season 2 or the light novel. And if you listen to this all the way through and you haven't seen Classroom of the Elite, I hope I maybe have sold you on it. That would be cool if I did. I have had a few people tell me that they watched a show or wanted to watch something or play a game or something that like just because I talked about it. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I mean, I just made this channel so I could talk about the things I wanted to talk about. You know, I didn't actually expect to get any audience at all. So like I feel like I say in every video, I'm always surprised at what we've accumulated here. It's not a big community. It's a really nice community with some very cool people, and I find it really enjoyable. I really enjoy making these videos. So yeah, hopefully if you listen to this video and you haven't seen Classroom of the Elite, hopefully you'll think about giving it a shot if you've got the time for it. It actually took me a really long time to rewatch this because I've just been so busy, so caught up in other things. I just have not really had the time to do much else lately, but I should be getting a little bit more time soon, hopefully. But yeah, as always, if you made it this far, if you listened to this random dude on the internet talk about an anime from 2017 for 50 minutes, thank you so very much. I very much so appreciate you. If you've got anything to say about the show or anything I said at all, absolutely feel free to leave it in the comments below. The comments are my favorite part of this channel, just reading what people have to say. I always like to comment. I always like to note just how thoughtful a lot of the comments are. I think that's one great thing about having a small sort of community like this, where it is such long form content as well, is that I find that leads to getting a lot of like really nice, well thought out comments that are pretty fun and easy to engage with, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, anything you have to say, feel free. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day, night, week, month, year, decade, life.